Guys, wanted to welcome you. This is Calan White with Superior Home Renovations, and I'm here with Courtney Martinez with JSI Insurance powered by Renegade. So I wanted to ask Courtney to come here and talk about what she does, how she can benefit you, how we work together, and finding the best practices to protect your homes and your investments. When we talk about renovations, Courtney's got a lot of experience in residential and commercial insurance. So I asked her to come and join me and answer some of our questions and hopefully provide you guys with some great information. So thank you for being here, Courtney.
You're very welcome.
So your background, you've been in insurance for how long?
About 12 years now, going on 12 years this year.
Okay, well, awesome. That's a long time.
It is.
So you've got a lot of experience, and I know you carry and save me a lot of money personally. And
Yes.
so I always try to refer you to my friends and other people that I know that are looking for new policies. I think it's great that you shop those policies for them and that's, something free that you do.
Mm-hmm.
How many carriers do you work with?
We have over 40.
Okay. That's a lot of carriers.
It is a lot of carriers. Most of them are going to be your standard lines carriers, but we have carriers for everybody.
Okay. That's great. When we talk about insurance and renovations, can you talk to me a little bit about roofs and different things that we can do to make sure that people are staying compliant and protecting their investment?
Of course. So staying compliant is 100% going to give them a better opportunity at getting a better rate. Updating your galvanized piping with the new PEX, by having your updated roof, it's going to give you a better rate with a more preferred carrier.
Gotcha.
So it comes down to a matter of eligibility.
Okay.
You have carriers that are not going to even give you a quote if you don't meet within their criteria with certain updates. So I have carriers that absolutely will not even give you a rate if you have galvanized plumbing. They will not even consider you if your roof is older than 15 years old. The ones that do write your policy with a roof that's older than 15 years old, then we start talking about it being insured in a different way. You have your replacement cost versus actual cash value. So maintaining those types of things and keeping them up to code is going to help your eligibility to get those preferred markets with a better rate.
So is that kind of where you see people reducing eligibility to reduce premiums?
Yes, 100%. So newer roofs are always going to bring a lower premium. A lot of companies will incentivize by giving what they call new roof credits, new roof discounts, whatever they want to name it. But they are going to give a discount for having a brand new roof versus someone whose roof is a little bit older.
Gotcha.
Those discounts, I have seen those discounts range from $400 to $1,200.
Wow.
So it's going to be different based off of company, but always 100% a new roof is going to be a better rate. And when it comes down to the other things like your piping, your HVAC, that isn't necessarily going to help, with giving a new discount for new plumbing or a new discount for HVAC, but it is going to help. Now you're eligible with this other company whose rates are half the cost of this one.
Gotcha.
So that's where you save on that end.
So what are some other ways to lower your premiums, and what do you find is really beneficial for clients?
For one, I always suggest reshopping. Reshopping your rates every year, annually, every 6 months, however it is that you have your policy written. Most homeowners policies are going to be annual. Shopping those around. If you don't want to take the time to call all these individual companies yourself, reach out to a broker who can help you. They have 40 plus carriers to do the work for you. Typically that's going to be free of charge to do that. So you can start by lowering costs by just checking the rates. A lot of the times these companies people get comfortable, especially when they're in escrow. They don't pay attention to it. It was paid, they're good to go. And then they realize they're paying $3,000 more a year than what they should.
Oh.
So always suggest reshopping for one. Your dwelling amount. Every year, if you look back at every one of your renewals, you probably notice your dwelling amount increases little by little every single year. And they do that to cover inflation. You can protest that to an extent, similar to like people protesting their taxes. You can protest the dwelling amount if it has gone up significantly higher than what it needs to be. That's something you reach out to your agent for. The agent then gets in contact with the underwriter who says, okay, they've got this many bathrooms, this kind of granite, what goes over the ins and the outs of the house. And they come back and say, okay, yes, we can lower the dwelling amount, or, oh no, the dwelling amount needs to go higher. But adjusting that dwelling amount and making sure that's fair is going to help with the rate. But your biggest savings is going to be your deductibles.
Okay.
The higher the deductible, the lower the premium. The insured is taking on more of the out-of-pocket risk, so the insurance company drops their premium for that. I know typically in Harris County, sometimes even parts of Montgomery County now, there are deductible minimums because we are a high risk for just about every peril in the state of Texas, from fire to tornadoes to hurricanes.
Yeah.
these insurance companies say, okay, we'll write your policy, but we are going to write it with a 2% deductible. That's the lowest we can go. Messing with those deductibles can definitely adjust your premium. That's where you're going to get a majority of the savings. So if you are a client who is more comfortable with out-of-pocketing a little bit more money, then you can increase your deductibles to drop your premium. Right. I have some clients who are really just worried about catastrophic losses, not necessarily the small things. And so he just this particular client just cares about if his house burns down to the ground. So he carries, a 5% deductible. So messing with those is definitely going to help. And then, of course, there's all the other types of coverages that can be messed with, other structures that covers things outside of the home. Mm-hmm. If you don't have anything, we can lower that to the minimum. Same thing with loss of use. That pays to put you guys up somewhere in the event of a claim and you are put out of your house. We can lower and adjust that number. Everything in your homeowner's policy can be adjusted accordingly. So again, this is where I preach getting an agent that you can trust that has your best interest in mind.
Goes over this fine.
And goes over all the fine print.
Yeah.
To save you the most money without sacrificing coverage.
I always recommend to read over the contract, have your trusted agent read over the contract, mm-hmm. making sure you go over all of those. And it's great that you put those things into a scenario so mm-hmm. that way they can have an idea. Yep. Hey, this is real life. This is what's happened. Yep. And you having so much experience, you say, I've seen it. I've done it. Yep. Here's what it is.
And of course, bundling too is another way to lower your premium. If you can bundle your auto, great. In my experience with me working as an independent agent offering all these different carriers, I may have a really great rate with one carrier, but then splitting them up, I may be able to find you a better rate. So it's not always best to bundle. And I think that's a common misconception is, mm-hmm. I've got it all bundled. I've got the best rate. That's not always the case, but there are discounts companies give to bundle. So like I said, it's again, goes back to having a good agent that's going to do that due diligence for you.
Awesome. Okay, good to know. In my experience, I've always okay, what's the lowest premium? And especially when I was younger, but now that I realize how important it is to really protect my investment and making sure I get enough coverage. So yes. How do you have that conversation with a client of wanting to be in the lowest premium, but also still having enough coverage?
I think that's where you really have to do your due diligence as an agent. And I hope that I do by educating my clients and helping them understand what it means to be insured the proper way by selling value. Yes, everyone wants the cheapest premiums, the less expensive premiums. 100%, I'm one of them. But your home is it's your largest investment. Your largest investment. And so protecting that is priority number one. So I hope that I do my job as an agent by educating my clients to make them understand that this coverage is important because of this.
Right.
I'm very big at writing out scenarios, emailing out scenarios, something that they can read, something they can see, and pressing on those pain points to make them understand that this is why you need it. And then at least if they decide to go with a completely different option, I educated them and I know.
Yeah. So you sleep well at night.
Yes.
I did my best. I totally get it. So going back just a little bit, we're in Kingwood and we had Harvey and everybody flooded. Mm-hmm. What was your experience with water damage claims? And then we had the February freeze and then we had a freeze this year too. So Did you see a lot of that?
I did. So obviously there's two different types of water damage. You have your flood from natural rainwater, and then you have water damage from busted pipes or overflowing toilets, overflowing sinks. Those are two different kinds of coverage. One is covered under your home policy and one is covered under a flood policy. Typically people can get their flood policies through FEMA, but I have a couple other carriers that I can write private flood insurance through that have a little bit of a better rate most of the time. So the flood insurance policy is what you need to cover your home from rising flood water. So rainwater that's rising that flooded your home. Every other kind of water damage from a busted pipe, anything like that is going to fall underneath your homeowner's policy. But what a lot of people don't know is a lot of those water coverages on the homeowner's policy have to be added. They're extra endorsements. They don't come with just your basic home policy. You add them, and then on top of when you add the coverage, you have endorsement limits. So you can add it for $5,000 in water coverage, or $10,000, or $15,000, and so on. And so a lot of the times when I'm looking over these people's homeowners policies, they don't even know that they don't have that specific coverage. Sorry.
Mm-hmm, that's okay. You're doing so good.
Thank you. So there's things called water backup. There's things called water seepage and leakage. Those are two different kinds of claims. Water seepage and leakage is going to be something similar to like a pipe leak in your wall that you didn't find out about for a couple weeks. So there's anything sudden and accidental is going to be covered under your homeowner's policy, but it's got to be sudden, it's got to be accidental. So a pipe burst, it flooded your home in a matter of minutes. Anything that's a slow water leak, so like a pipe in your wall that's been leaking over time, a lot of the times that's excluded under just your basic homeowner's policy. That has to be added with a special endorsement. And so 100% I suggest having a conversation with your agent and discussing those coverages, because a lot of the times people don't know that they're separate. They just assume I've got a homeowner's policy, everything's covered. There is so much gray area sometimes in some of these policies. And so it's very important to have an agent that you trust, that you know has your best interest in mind.
So we touched a little bit about updating electrical, updating piping to PEX. We talked about, busted pipes, leaks, things like that. What about meeting codes? Because in our industry, we work with the permitting office. We permit every single job. And it's important that we meet those codes. So does that filter over to you a little bit as well? Like making sure that the building standards and practices are up to date with the policies that you're writing?
Correct. So typically, I mean, if you've got to be up to code, it's more than likely going to pass on the home insurance side as well. Anytime you write a new homeowner's policy, there's always going to be an inspection of your property.
Mm-hmm.
They hire a third-party inspector to come out and inspect the exterior, sometimes the interior of your home. If things are not up to code, he's going to catch that. He's going to send his results to the homeowner's insurance company and say, hey, XYZ is wrong. The homeowner insurance company reaches out to you, says, this is what we found. We're going to give you 45 days to fix it, or we're going to drop your insurance. And they're looking at things like that. They want to make sure that you have the updated piping. They want to make sure that your roof doesn't have, granule loss on the shingles. They're going to want basically just pride of ownership.
Mm-hmm.
They want to make sure that everything is compliant to make them want to stay on the risk.
Right.
So yes, so staying up to code is extremely important.
In our business, we also have, the inspectors come every step of the way
Mm-hmm.
and it's usually they're an electrical inspection, a plumbing inspection, HVAC inspection. And, we've been doing this for long enough that we know what's expected. We know what codes we need to meet. And every single one of our trades is licensed. So that's a way that we ensure for our clients as well, to make sure like, hey, we're up to code. We're passing these inspections,
Yep.
And it's a huge red flag to me for clients that don't want to permit their jobs and don't want, because it's really not optional and it's us that take the risk.
Well, and on the insurance side of things, whenever we are talking about staying up to code during renovations and things like that, a lot of the times to stay compliant with your insurance company, they're going to require that whoever's doing the renovations is licensed, is up to code, does have their own insurance policies. They're not going to let just anybody come in there and do your HVAC, because they want to make sure it's done right to avoid possible claims in the future. Right.
Mm-hmm. We carry a general liability, and we also talk about builder's risk. So I want to touch on that with you, because from what I found is it works out really well if the client carries that builder's risk. That's how our contract is written, because instead of us carrying an additional rider for each client. So what kind of stuff do you see from the insurance side of builder's risks, what it covers, what additional things that they should add? What are your recommendations there?
Yeah, so builder's risk, obviously, I would 100% move forward with purchasing a builder's risk. It's not something I would do without. So if it's not going to be provided to you, definitely reach out to me, and I can write that policy for you. Builder's risk is going to cover your building materials. I mean, the structure, in the event that it's 70% done and something happens. I mean, you want to make sure that you're protecting your investment even throughout the build process, not just when it's completed. And so you're going to have coverage for fire, theft of building materials. And a lot of people think that, it's going to be a very expensive policy. It's not. It's typically pretty minimal. And you can cover things for fire, for theft, sometimes even flood, depending on the endorsements that you add, certain water damages. To give you peace of mind to know that investment is covered from start to finish for the amount of money, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, that's awesome. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing so much information with us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. If you guys have any questions, I will link Courtney's contact information in the bottom of the video. Feel free to reach out to us anytime, and we look forward to hearing from you. Thanks.